Hi, this is Bruce, and welcome to my Xtreme Prototypes GLJ Model 25 Delta Learjet. It's a great aircraft to own, a lot of fun to fly. It's an antique amongst the Learjets, but a sweet aircraft nevertheless. I'm going to go ahead and just show you how the door operates here. It's very nicely done. And let's go ahead and shut that back up. So that's the exterior of the aircraft. Let's go ahead and pop then into the interior and we'll go ahead and get started. Now this is a video that I do for myself as a reminder of how this aircraft starts from a cold and dark condition up to taxi ready, and I'm sharing it with you, my sim community. Any comments are appreciated because we're certainly all learning from each other. I'm using P3D version 4.3, Active Sky for the weather, Chase Plane for the views, Ultimate Traffic, and P3D Traffic for what you're seeing outside the cockpit window, and Windows 10, i5 is overclocked, SSD drive, and NVIDIA GTX 1070 for those that are curious. So here we are in the cold and dark condition. When you start this up yourself, you won't see this. You're going to see a taxi ready or nearly taxi ready situation. In order to get to a truly cold and dark start, you'll do two things if you want to do what I'm done here. Hit Shift M, mic, Shift M, and that'll turn off the electronics. And then down here amongst the throttles, there's these fuel shutoff valves. Just click on those and you'll shut off your fuel flows, and then there might be just a few switches in here that might still be on in the lights. You can just click those off if you wish as well, and then save it in a cold and dark state if you need to. So I just wanted to run it through just for fun from a cold and dark, as I said, to taxi ready. This aircraft's maximum speed is 477 knots, its optimum speed is 420, optimum ceiling is 45,000, and the range is 1,000. It is a fuel hog, so be aware that I personally do not take off without all of my tanks filled with fuel. They seem to go through it and nothing flat, so we'll go ahead then and roll along. I'm going to kick that back out too. So let's go ahead then and start from scratch as if we've just hopped in. We're going to set our parking brake, left clicking on that. When the flag is up, the mail's in the box, right? When the flag is up, the mail is set and parked. So that's our parking brake up. If you want to get rid of the clutter in here, just left click on that silver bar, they go away, left click, they come back. Also, you notice our yokes are missing. I've taken them out just with a left click here to the boots in each case, so I'm going to go ahead and drop those back out now that you've seen that. That's how you get rid of those. Then we're going to run over here to the pilot's left and look at these two knobs there. You left click them, they rotate in each case, and whichever is on the bottom, off and manual for passenger masks and passenger oxygen, that's the state they're in. In order to fly, we want to switch this from off to normal and from manual to auto. So now auto's on the bottom and norm is on the bottom, and that's what you want to see. And then we're going to go over here to the co-pilot section, and we're going to look at this square area right here as a follow-on to what we just did. This is your bleed air. It needs to be down and it needs to be in the off position. Don't mess with this red button. By the way, if you do click on it, for instance, or if you use your mouse wheel, to move it, pretty soon you're stuck either up or down, and you might start to think, how am I ever going to get that back in the middle? Left click it, and it's back under the guard again where it really belongs, and you can just leave it there. This is on manual instead of auto. We're going to leave it on manual for now. The pressurization rate should be just left straight up under the rate note there, not decreased or increased. It's fine. You can play with that later if you want to. Right now the cabin altitude when we're taking off is going to be set at 8924, but I'd prefer it to be closer to 8. So just by rolling my mouse wheel down, it's now at 8020 on a little pop-up that you can't see on the video, but I can see it and you will too when you're in there. And that little diamond right there is a close indicator of where that's set, so it's just above 8,000. And that's the place we want to keep it for right now. Alright, so let's then press ahead. If your windshield is fogged, just left click this switch, or knob rather, and pull it in or out. Just hang on to that left mouse button and you've got control of it right there. So that works out just great. Now we're going to go ahead and get our battery switches on. They're right here. One switch turns them both on. Then we're going to turn on both the inverters. The master switch is already on. That's off. That's on. And then we'll turn our nav lights on to let folks know that there is in fact somebody in the cockpit and active and busy at the time, so they can keep an eye on us. So we got that done. The pitch trim is right here. It's rudder, aileron, and elevator in its indications. The elevator trim should be set so that it's about 50% below the outer markings. So for instance, you might see that it starts off right in the middle. Just bring it down till it's like halfway through, and I'll show you what happens if we go too far down. Let's just really accentuate the problem. There's a way to check to see if we're way off kilter, and it's right there. It says Takeoff Trim. So if we now put our trim back into a better state, we'll bring it back up a ways, we'll watch, and now it's off. Takeoff Trim indicator has been removed. So we don't want to see that lit up when we're fiddling with our trim. So that's good. And in that same vein, the pitch trim is probably preset for norm, but it's never a bad idea to make sure that your assumptions are always maintained. So that should be in the up position. To set our fuel counter to 0 here, I'll get a better view than that. We'll come down from on top. There's a little black button right there that just fades right in unless you look closely. Left clicking on that resets everything to 0. This knob right here only tells you how much fuel is available in each tank. It will not switch between the tanks for drawing fuel. You can see the maximum available is 59.85. We're obviously less than that. Just a little indicator. Here's your fuel jettison. You want to leave that down in the off position. Your cross flow is to be off. I can't think of any, just leave it closed. I can't think of any condition where I've needed that before. Your standby pumps can also be left in the down off position, and your jet pumps left clicking should both be on the up on position. Just this, you're going to pull fuel from your wingtips first, your wingtip tanks, and when those get too low, then the way to get it to the main fuselage tank is to take this switch and move it up into Xfer, and that will then pull fuel from the main tank. Here are some autopilot features. Here is your emergency light arm switch. Just move it up 1, and that should take care of you. Here's your yaw damper on, off, in case you're wondering. And I think the rest of it is pretty self-explanatory, and frankly it's all repeated up in these myriad of buttons that you can select as well. So there's those. Now, how do we get the engine to start? Well, this is the really fun part, of course, is getting our engines running. And so we'll bring up our throttles again with a left click on that silver bar. Here's how it works. You may be wondering, where is it? How do we get these things started? It doesn't even say engines. It just says gen off start, gen off start. There are 2 left and right. What we want to do is roll with the mouse wheel down to the start position, and then watch the RPM for the left engine to run up to 20. When it gets to 20, then we can go ahead and click the fuel shutoff valve and let it run. So let's just do it. I'm going to roll my mouse wheel towards myself. We're going to watch our RPMs slowly get up there to 20. And then when it hits 20, I'm going to go ahead and left click on the fuel shutoff valve, which should be right about now. And then it'll fire up. It'll go just past 50 and then settle down to 50. And then we'll put it up to gen to get the generators online, and that's moving the mouse wheel away from myself. And then we'll go ahead and move the mouse wheel towards myself on the right, and we'll repeat the process for the right engine. Just takes a second. This is really sweet. It operates very smoothly. Oh, and I should have my beacon light on too. That was my fault. Not following my checklist, just gabbing away. Settle down. I'm going to run that up with the right mouse click, or mouse wheel rather, and then I'm going to click on the silver bar, get rid of all of that clutter there. And by the way, this is my engine sync right here. Your seat belts are hiding right up there, just a mouse wheel. You can move that up or down, and up is when it's on, forward rather, and then your spoiler should be in the up, and it's guarded, of course, for very good reason. You don't want your spoilers out, so we'll leave that be. Alright, let's go back to the checklist here and keep ourselves out of trouble, because that beacon light should have been on, because when you turn your beacon on, you're telling people you're going to be moving soon and the engines are going to be started and all that kind of thing. Now we're going to turn on our primary and secondary inverters if they aren't already. That's good. The auxiliaries are not needed. We just leave those off. We can turn on our recognition light and our taxi light. We'll leave the strobe for when we're on the active runway ready for takeoff, as well as our landing lights. Those will come on at that time. The spoilers, as I said, should be retracted. The bleed air switch now here can be rolled up with the mouse wheel to norm, and then the far right one to auto. We can change, if we need to, our cabin altitude if we haven't already, but it's still set at 8, which is what we want to see. And then over here, if depending upon weather conditions, we've got different heating sources. I always put my pitot heat on. That's just an old habit of mine. And then I put the windshield heat on auto. You can overheat your window if you just turn it on and you're not even taxiing yet. You'll see a little enunciator light up. Don't be surprised if that happens. Then we want our anti-skid on. We want our radio altimeter switch on. We want our stall warning switches left and right turned on. And then there's a neat little power steering assist here, and it's right over here. It says steering lock. If you left click that like so, you'll notice the annunciator now says steering on. You'll leave that way in that condition for taxiing until you're lined up on the runway, and then you're going to left click it again like so, and notice the annunciator went off. So just an important, it's just an up and down auto switch. It didn't have to click it back down, it just goes back down automatically. So we've got all those set. We've got our seat belts on, sign on. We've got all our heat selected. We've got our external lights selected. Now here's something that you should know. And we've got our flaps, by the way, at 8 set for takeoff. That was probably done earlier from a fouled up video I tried a minute ago. I should have put that back all the way up, but 8 would be your standard for takeoff. And I think the rest of this is looking really good. Now the thing I want to mention is the GPS unit does turn on, but it's no good. I wouldn't use this for navigating with this aircraft, and the literature says don't use it for this purpose. What you need is a third party, an add-on of some kind, and so I've just got one here. It's a Garmin from Flight One. They've updated it recently to work with 4.3, so this is how I would do it, and just put in my flight plan, like if I'm at Boise right now and I want to go to Boeing Field, and just hit enter, and then I can
TOS
go back,
system test OK.
Garmin talking, and go to the map feature. Now you can see, and I'm just using my mouse wheel to scroll way out. Now you can see what's set up. It's really a nice system. I like it a lot. It works well, and I've used it in many other aircraft. It'll even show you taxi things like this. Super handy. The CDI will change from VLOC to GPS, and notice something. Here, watch this switch right there between the two. Now it's on nav, now it's on GPS, so these two are linked. If you click this blue bar right there, it's switching the active navigation source. So if I were to click on that one, I think what it does is it sends me to this one, and then it's still interacting. It must not have clicked correctly. Yeah, I think that might have done it. Anyway, I'm thinking this is the way it's been done in the past, and I've had some trouble. So whether or not I've got that clear in my own head, which apparently I don't, this is a key piece that you may consider if you find out that it's not navigating according to your Garmin of choice. So just a little quick mention. So don't rely on this one. In fact, I just leave it off. And by the way, the weather is for looks. It does no good at all. It just gives you sort of a static picture, and it's not worth even using. So leave that off for your own peace of mind. Make sure your gyro is free and not locked. Turn your flight director on. Get your barometric pressure situated. You can change it with this, or just hit the B on your mouse keyboard. Make sure you got your V1, VR, and V2 set. They give you great literature based on weights and everything that it's easy to figure out. But generally speaking, V2 is somewhere in the 130s, up to 140, 142 if you're really maxed out weight-wise. And then you'll set your initial course and everything, heading, VOR or whatever, nav here. Just set everything as you need it. And then I noticed, just as a little FYI, when it comes time to take off, what you can do here is, when you got think ahead, when your gear is up and your flaps are up and you've got your plane stable and you feel comfortable, hit the autopilot, hit Alt, hit nav lock if you're using GPS instead of the VLOC. And then when your speed is the way you want it, hit the speed button. I'm going to take it off a wings level. So it'd be autopilot, Alt, nav lock, speed at the speed that I want to maintain. And it works beautifully. If you exceed the envelope, you know, you're too fast or whatever, the autopilot will go off. There's a lot of interactivity here, depending upon what switches are pushed. You need to read the literature. It's too many interactive pieces to explain and keep track of. But generally speaking, AP, Alt, Navlog, speed, terrific combination. And when you press Alt, don't think you're going to hold the altitude that you pressed it at, which is typical. When you press Alt, it's going to take you up to your pre-assigned altitude, which I'm just going to roll it up now to 40,000. That won't be what ATC would allow me if I was talking to them, but just for demo purposes. And I will climb at the speed I set, clear up to 40,000 feet, and it's slick. It's really easy. And then when I'm at flight level 290, it switches to Mach automatically. So it's a wonderful aircraft to fly. I can't think of anything else to say except when you're lined up on the runway, of course, it's strobe, landing light, and then turn on your thrust reversers, make those armed. And once you're in the air, you can turn those off. And I can't think of anything else I'd like to add at this point. I think I've covered most of everything. I would just suggest watch your fuel like a hawk, and watch for low fuel indicators, and then use your Xfer to get the fuselage tank running. Otherwise, your engines will quit on you. And I like to cruise at about 42,000 heading west. It's just a simple altitude for this aircraft to achieve. So again, I think you'll really enjoy it. I have. It's slick, it's fast, it's fun, and aside from the fact that the nav unit here is no good, it's worth getting a little extra add-on for all the other aircraft you may have. And that's it. I won't belabor it anymore. I hope this has been a help. Any feedback is appreciated, and we'll learn again from each other. Thanks so much. Have a lot of fun. Enjoy your flying. Bye-bye.